you. So please.
Good evening. My name is Tom Oswald, and I'm the team lead for Project Team C. Our members are listed here. And as Dr. Barreto said, we're going to present our recommendations for protecting individual privacy from intrusive drone surveillance.
Our problem motivation deals with protecting individual privacy from intrusive drone surveillance. The current drone market is about $85 billion and is expected to double within the next 4.5 years, with an estimated compound annual growth rate of 10 to 14%. With the expected growth and backlash from stakeholders complaining about privacy, the motivation to improve the UTM ecosystem is high. Privacy concerns in current UTM systems are the abilities of, but not limited to, recording people and private property, collecting sensitive data on their locations and behaviors, data misuse and leaks, and difficulty distinguishing between legitimate and intrusive drone operations. Next slide. Impacts on individuals include erosion of privacy due to stalking, harassment, and even violence. There is a low acceptance of drone operations by communities, which is a major concern when trying to exploit technologies and capitalize in the UTM ecosystem. Organizations have to deal with regulations, lawsuits, increased pressure against operators, and harsh fees. Common concerns from individuals when drones are flying overhead or them flying over private property without consent, the unauthorized recording or surveillance of the property, difficulty IDing pilots after they've committed violations, and weak enforcement of privacy rules. Next slide. I'm going to be talking about a list of lawsuits starting with ACLU versus CBP. This lawsuit dealt with the DHS using military-style drones to record and track protesters following the murder of George Floyd. By June 19th of 2020, over 270 hours had been recorded of protesters across 15 cities, linking data points such as an individual location, their license plate, and their addresses together. This showed a lack of privacy in design, causing backlash from citizens and Congress. The recording showed First Amendment concerns due to tracking and targeting of protesters from government surveillance, and Fourth Amendment concerns when creating profiles and protesters from multiple data points. Recording protesters does not become a Fourth Amendment concern until facial recognition technology is toggled. In the second lawsuit, next slide, please. In the second lawsuit, Long Lake Township versus Michigan, the Maxon family took the township to court when police used drones to take aerial footage of their lot. The Maxons were previously punished with ordinance violations for having unlicensed junkyard on their property, but after neighbors complained of salvage cars still being there, police took added measures to record aerial footage of the property without their consent. The Maxons were unhappy and took it to court, and after nearly a decade of legal proceedings, the court had deemed that the footage was unconstitutionally obtained. Next slide. In a final lawsuit titled NPPA versus McCraw, the Texas Privacy Act was challenged by the MPPA complaining about the rights of journalism after being hurt by no-fly zone provisions, which was stated in the act. The original ruling of the District Court of the Western District of Texas sided with the news organization, but when escalated, it was overturned by the Fifth Circuit Court. The court stated that no-fly zones have more so to do with the privacy of citizens and not so much the rights of journalism. This shows when drone issues escalate in court, the privacy of individuals is deemed of higher importance. Next slide.
So my name is Amir, and I'm going to touch on the background and gaps. So the first thing is what solutions currently exist. So we have geofencing, remote ID, authentication, and then flight restrictions. And then at the top, you can see we have two diagrams. So this shows an example of geofencing. So we have a skyscraper and also a windmill, and geofencing basically creates a fence around these critical assets so no accidents can happen. Next slide, please. So why are the current solutions failing? It's because our solutions are reactive, they're not proactive. The solutions only address the symptoms, but not the root causes. And then the solutions are also inconsistent and they vary wildly between the manufacturers. Some a lot of on the right we have a bunch of manufacturers that are most are failing the FAA requirements. You can see that Skydio is the only one that's fully ready, and the rest are not compliant. So how do we protect privacy policy? So privacy should be built in the design phase as a system requirement to minimize the data that's collected and utilized, and then also to build public trust in drone technology through transparency. And then there's also 7 principles. So again, like we talked about, being proactive, not reactive, privacy as a default setting, privacy embedded into the design phase, full functionality, end-to-end security, visibility and transparency, and then respect for user privacy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Connor Wadlin. I'm going to be covering the threat analysis. Due to the nature of our concerns, we're particularly focusing around the public and potential backlash that could be gone through potential privacy leaks. When we were doing our extensive research and writing up our reports on our findings, the 3 main takeaways we had in terms of what the public was mainly concerned about was one, being spied on by, UAS and other drone type objects. The main concern was if people are walking around, and especially if they're in their homes or at work, as well as in public more generally, if they are being perceived or even assume they are being perceived by a drone or other UAS, then they are going to feel unsafe. They're going to feel like they're being monitored, particularly with the current climate in terms of people's feelings to the government and other businesses. There's a lot of fear around state surveillance. And if drones are going to be flying around the streets delivering people's packages, potentially offering, rides like an air taxi service, if people are being monitored, there's going to be a lot of backlash. Some of the other concerns we saw was that people felt very, very uncomfortable in the studies that we were reading about flying directly over their homes, as well as flying over businesses. In public, people were generally more accepting so long as it was along traditional roadways or where you were in public and you were known to be recorded. However, when someone is in a private residence or in their workplace, if there's drones flying over like a skylight or being able to generally be observed by people within the residence, they reported a very, very strong reason to not want the drones there because they felt like they would be being monitored and they are otherwise being private. Third, when they're around, like just walking on the street, having drones like visibly and auditorily, particularly near them. They didn't want drones flying like around head view so that it would be very loud because of the rotors and such. This led us to next slide, please. This led us to think of a variety of different ways to address these concerns. First off, we need to ensure people both aren't actually being perceived from a technical perspective, as well as they don't feel like they're being perceived from a more social perspective. This can be done in a variety of ways, as we will cover both in our analysis through our architecture, as well as in our demo later on. However, some strategies include geofencing to both block off from a technical perspective where the drone is allowed to fly, where it's not allowed to fly, as well as adding in sensor level protections that will automatically, before any footage is utilized, block out faces that are detected as well as windows. Next slide, please. This is illustrated in this image in which a drone will be flying around performing its operation. Next slide, please. It'll detect a face and then it'll automatically move away. Having these automatic, next slide, please. Having these be automatic responses where a human controller or some system otherwise requires manual human input not be utilized, and having something be automatic both ensures strict compliance, having the behavior be similar throughout examples, as well as ensures that the public is well informed as what is going to happen, is that it's not up to an individual actor to make these responses. It also cuts out potential insider issues, such as a malicious user ignoring protections that are built in because the solution is done at a system level, not at an individual level.
Hi everyone, so I'm Fatima. I'm going to be walking us through the proposed solution architecture and the entrepreneurial opportunities enabled by it. So our architecture involves solving UTM in the only 2 places that it can be resolved, which is on the ground and in the sky. This slide shows the strategic layer, which is enforced before the drone ever takes off. UTMS, FIMS, and UAS service suppliers work together to apply pre-flight compliance enforcement, meaning the drone can only activate a mission that already meets privacy requirements. Part of this is a strict 200 to 400 foot flight zone, which prevents low altitude imaging into private spaces. And second, we restrict routing so flights only occur over transportation corridors, not homes or businesses. This creates an ecosystem for a privacy contract between drones and the public. The system ensures the mission itself is safe and privacy compliant before the drone enters the airspace. The second half of the architecture is the tactical layer, enforced during flight by the aircraft itself. Even with compliant U-plan, real environments change, people walk into view, windows appear unexpectedly, or connectivity can drop. To handle this, the drone autonomously enforces three major privacy mechanisms. The first is automated altitude floors and geofencing, ensuring the drone cannot physically descend into sensitive airspace. The second is face detection triggered avoidance, when the drone ascends or veers away if a human enters the camera view. And MASP window redaction algorithm. MASP stands for morphological and segmentation process. This identifies window-like structures and redacts them in real time. This is sensor-level privacy that the drone's onboard autonomy protects individuals even when operator attention or network connectivity drops. Together, the strategic and tactical layers form a bidirectional contract between the ecosystem and the aircraft. So this is our developed DFD, where we've taken our ideas and enforced them into the already established UAS space. So this diagram shows where the tactical privacy enforcement actually lives in the system architecture. So here you can see the tactical autopilot and guidance system, where the drone uses locally cached flight constraints such as geofences and corridor center lines, physically responds to them in real time. Any deviation will trigger a compliance event, which gets logged. And this is important because it establishes verifiable compliance, not just assumed compliance. This highlighted section shows the face and window detection system, which is a core differentiator of our architecture. So the drone continuously scans the environment for windows or faces. If a face appears, the drone executes avoidance bias behaviors, either ascending or adjusting course. If a window appears in frame, the region of interest is passed to the MASP redaction before the imagery is ever stored or transmitted. And this is where we directly mitigate the core Indian privacy threats, identifiability, linkability, and unauthorized disclosure. So this portion of the diagram highlights the window redaction and data minimization pipeline. So MASP redaction produces only sanitized frames with no raw pixels ever retained. These redacted frames are stored ephemerally, meaning that they get automatically expired after a certain amount of time. Once expired, they're deleted and the deletion gets logged for auditability. And this ensures the system practices true privacy by design, minimal data, minimal retention, and full accountability. From an entrepreneurial standpoint, the architecture unlocks a powerful new market, which is compliance as a service, or CAAS. Because compliance is measurable via logs, constraints, avoidance triggers, and MASP redaction, third-party providers can offer services such as automated privacy auditing, certification, and real-time compliance analytics. This is essentially privacy as an infrastructure. Operators gain lower liability and easier regulatory approval. Regulators gain transparency and oversight, and cities gain public trust and governance tools. This turns privacy from a barrier into a scalable business opportunity for the UTM ecosystem.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Zach, and I'll be going over our validation strategy and also the implementation. So as for how we have validated our solution, we used Microsoft AirSim to simulate a drone package delivery to an office building and also a residential neighborhood with and without our proposed mitigations in place. We tested and marked the effects of our controls, ensuring altitude enforcement, geofencing, privacy filtering, and human avoidance responses, all without the need for expensive trials or specialized hardware. Now, AirSim is an open source simulator that's developed by Microsoft explicitly for the purpose of autonomous vehicle testing and experimentation. This software is the leading technology used by academics and organizations around the globe to safely implement and test measures. Some notable users are NASA, Stanford's Aeronautics and Astronautics Department, as well as Microsoft itself. Next slide, please. So this will be our demonstration. So with the spring arm view to follow the drone, we're kind of able to give a wider view for all of us while still showing essentially what the camera sees. And in this video, we're showing the default behavior of drones, and we can see that as it's completing its delivery task to an office building, that this pedestrian's face is within full view, opening them up to identification risks from the recorded footage. And I'd like to apologize. I am not the world's best drone pilot. Here we can see the same delivery situation, but with our facial detection response in place. First off, we can see that this drone is maintaining the 200-foot flight floor requirement before it deems it necessary to descend for its task. Once the pedestrian's face is detected, the drone's immediate response is to turn 180 degrees around and ascend until reattempting the task later. This provides a clear visual method for the public to know that their privacy is being preserved. This next situation is for a package delivery in a residential zone. So without altitude enforcement and geofencing, a drone can simply fly and hover over houses, significantly increasing visibility and noise levels for these communities. So while conducting this delivery, we can see how visible the windows and backyards along the route are, and even more so once the drone descends to drop off its payload. So imagine you're in this house and you see that a drone's camera is facing straight towards your front windows with no mitigations in place. It's not really a great feeling to have. Once the drone completes its delivery, it is free to route straight over the neighborhood again, collecting data as it goes. So for the same delivery situation, we can see that there's a 200-foot flight floor and geofencing in place with a preference for routing over roads that already have higher regular traffic. This significantly reduces the drone's visibility and noise levels within the neighborhood, effectively keeping them out of sight and sound of residents, as well as reducing the ability for the drone's camera to pick up details in their community. This is aided by requiring drones to stay within their mandated altitude band until required to descend for their task, as we can see here. Once under that flight floor, the MASP window redaction software will kick in and scramble the windows in the surrounding area. This marks a stark difference in privacy for the residents compared to current drone operations. And once the delivery is completed, the drone will reascend back to within its altitude band and continue on its day. Next slide, please. And the results are pretty compelling. Our system covered 100% of privacy areas while still maintaining full compliance with flight rules and completed their tasks with minimal extension of flight time. So in the residential delivery case, we only extended the mission by 15 seconds. Even more importantly, viewers consistently reported higher trust and comfort levels when shown the privacy protecting footage compared to the standard behavior videos. In the demonstration videos, we showed 3 core capabilities of our solution. The first being that when a drone detects a face, it will automatically turn away and ascend before attempting its task again. Second, that a 200-foot minimum flight floor prevents close encounters with residents and minimizes noise pollution alongside the restrictions for route pathing over residential areas, all which will be continuously enforced by the policymaker and logged later for audit. Lastly, we've also shown that our implementation of the MASP software will detect and scramble windows in real time when descending below the flight floor before any processing occurs. This ensures that any video captures of private spaces are never stored or transmitted first without being obscured. By offering practical controls for auditing and compliance monitoring that are easily placed within the already existing drone airspace framework, we can provide automated compliance measures that do not overcomplicate drone operators' responsibilities while also aiding in regulators' checks. Now, we want to also acknowledge the risks of our solution. So first, with any object detection software, there's always a potential for false negatives where a window or face could miss being scrambled when it should. There's also the potential for smaller drones with minimal computing power to struggle detecting and scrambling mass amounts of windows or faces found in urban environments. And additionally, drone operators may see these privacy measures as too complex or mission constraining and push back against its adoption and implementation. And lastly, the public's trust in drones depends on visible privacy protections that are verifiable, and there may be skepticism if the privacy filters are invisible or non-transparent to them.
And that concludes our presentation. Open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. So you've strict the time, nice, really nice. So yeah, it's very open for the people to ask. Please, Ben, can you start?
Of course, amazing presentation. Love the demo. A couple of questions I had. First one around at the start, you showed a number of the manufacturers and mentioned that many of them would not be compliant with a solution that would be fit for purpose. What would be required in order to make those manufacturers compliant, and how much effort would be involved there? And then second, on the entrepreneurial value slide, you started to talk a little bit about the value, but could you talk more about how you would actually commercialize something like this and generate revenue from it, please?
Well, as far as the regulations for the non-compliant companies, they would just need to meet FAA requirements. The specifics of that, I'm not 100% sure, but I know for some requirements would be geofencing as one of the most important things, amongst other things, but mainly FAA requirements.
And would you see yourself working with them and selling this solution into the manufacturers, or it was something they would just have to adopt themselves?
I would say working with them personally.
Okay, so do you see them as a client of this solution?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then that leads nicely into then how do you commercialize this to make this something that could actually make money?
I would say something like a consulting firm that gets people compliant, just like cybersecurity companies do with other companies. But consulting is the way I would see it.
Okay, so you're selling the services versus actually selling like a technical solution that you would rinse and repeat essentially.
It would be both, but yeah, getting them compliant would be the main job and priority with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Todd, please.
All right, thank you. Well, Ben took one of my questions. Excellent presentation. Um, so I guess this was briefly noted, but I was wondering if you could speak more a bit. Certainly in the demonstration, right, with the avoiding the face. So that was a nice demonstration, but of course we know that there are a lot of highly trafficked areas where that could prevent the drone from completing whatever its task is entirely in some scenarios. Would you foresee potential solutions to that might get past the operators struggle with adopting something like this, or might fighting against it? Had you talked about solutions that might be from a compliance point of view, or just from a solution from the operator's point of view?
In regards to that, that's kind of a tricky one for us to answer. I know there's a lot of complexities when it comes to that. We didn't really delve into the implications in like these very populated areas within urban environments, what this would look like having to reascend and descend back again to do package deliveries. But we need to, continue our research and find out what's in that area that we can try and bridge the gap there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, I just want extra information. So, I think this application is very important, for example, in the place that you have a very strict regulation in privacy, like in the Europe when you have GPGR. No, so when you need to accomplish the GPGR, you need to have something close to that. So, yes, it's only one extra point because sometimes when you analyze the US scenario, we do not have a so strong um, regulation, for example, to privacy here in the West. You have several regulation, but not one like one something like the GPGR. But in the GPGR context, it make a lot of sense. So not only the agents that need to regulate, but including, for example, the company need to provide answer for the demand. So, but yes, it's only one complementation of the to give a little more context. Letitia, please.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I have one question related to if something happens with the drone or if the GPS is jammed, uh, what fallback mechanism does your system relies on?
Who can answer?
Connor, I'm not sure if you're speaking, but I'll go ahead and jump in. So, um, the program, the way that we've presented it, essentially will preload routing instructions into the drone itself. So, in the case of lost connectivity, it will have a plan established. In the case of like a lost GPS signal, I'm not sure that we have established how it would be able to figure out where its like location is. So I would imagine our next step would be putting in like an auto stop feature until connectivity can be resumed. So that way it's remaining compliant as to not flying over homes by accident or deviating from the pre-planned route that was loaded in the U plan.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one, Dylan.
Hey, yeah, I also want to commend you. It was a great presentation. I actually learned a lot about it. Just one of the things that, speaking about this in the terms of privacy and as a consumer, something you'd mentioned about was the social aspect of it, and you needed to address the privacy, the legal and the cyber aspect of it, and keeping in mind the social connotation or link as well. And I think that's really important to focus in on. And it kind of ties into what I think it was Todd had mentioned earlier, as far as like if users are out on the street and your drone descends and sees a face and reascends and continues that process. Do you see an like a legal or a technical enforcement as a solution for that? Because one of the things that I came up with is like on George Mason's campus, right? We have the robots that drive around and deliver food. They're really cute. I love to see them, and I've never once thought about the fact that they're probably recording my face and everything about me. But now I'm thinking about that. So if I'm a user and I'm getting my delivery, I guess do you see as kind of a global opt-out or for users to say, I guess I'm registering my intent in this geofence, do not record my face. Whereas in other geofences, maybe you can record my face if you're walking down Broadway or something similar. Did you go down that route, or did you think about any of the privacy risks? Because I guess you address privacy risk at large, but I'm talking about privacy risks that your solution may actually face in and of itself while trying to address privacy risks.
I think that's a really great question, honestly. In terms of different like locations and the scopes of like you like in very urban environments, if the drone is trying to land and it continues that behavior of going up and down, right? Trying to ensure that it's not detecting faces and doing so in a very obvious way of illustrating to the public, hey, we're not trying to see you, we're moving away actively. The way in which that could be mitigated. There certainly could be like different levels, right? That could definitely come down to the way in which, regulatory bodies and, organizers of these services sort of coordinate. Because like in somewhere like New York, if you have a drone flying around with the current sort of like unilateral structure, it wouldn't be able to land functionally given there are people walking around New York all the time. This is something that, in terms of detection, obviously the faces would still be blocked from a functional and sensor level. However, there could be a regulatory sort of analysis of working with these organizations and within like, local communities of being like, okay, if this behavior happens multiple times, what do we do? Is there a response? There could be a, council meeting where people come and say, hey, I really like this technology. I really want it to happen. Are we willing to understand, hey, the drones are going to land, even though it looks like it's seeing us, we understand it doesn't see us. I feel like that would be done in combination of like local sort of legislative bodies as well as the business perspective to ensure that this is functionally possible. Because we don't want drones just going up and down, never delivering
Right.
packages and running out of battery and crashing, because that
Because
would
yeah, I
be.
mean, I consider it as a user causing a DOS attack, basically. If a malicious user knows that you're trying to stand there and just continuously shows their face to attack your system, that's where my head went with that. So sounds like you thought about it. And I guess the only other question I would have is kind of we tied into what you were saying. Do you see your the proposed model or solution as being a partner with the regulatory bodies, or do you think you present it as more of a commercial solution or as a service, and a different body can come in and go to those council meetings or lobby on your behalf?
So the way we structured the presentation, given the scope of this being a Shark Tank seminar, was with the
Right.
business focus first, due
Perfect.
to the nature of we're trying to explain how this could be used not as a weapon against the technology's adoption, but how this will actually allow the technology adoption. Because if the public's main concern is their privacy, and legislatures obviously would be pressured by the public to halt this technology, wait for advancements and such, we thought to proactively engage the business community in this sort of research to, build this technology in with drone manufacturers and such preemptively, because building in privacy by design before regulators have to come in stops that reactive sort of band-aid
Sure.
solution strategy. But obviously, this has to be done in tandem because it can't just be from government, it can't just be from business, it can't just be from random people who are in a Zoom call, right? This has to be done in collaboration with all of the involved parties to ensure that everyone agrees, right? This has to
Yeah.
be done securely in terms of communications. This has to be done securely in terms of the actual flight not running into buildings. That has to be done securely in terms of people's privacy. So we wanted to involve as many people as possible to get businesses online already acting to follow potential restrictions that may already be thought up in places like Europe and such to ensure compliance on a global scale.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I need to stop the discussion. So there is one question, Connor, in the chat for someone in the group to answer to answer Gabriel. So the next group and the last presentation. So okay, so just let me check